So now that we know what these trigonometric ratios are, we're going to take a look at how to work with them. So when you have to choose which trigonometric ratio you're going to use, sine, cosine, or tangent, it completely depends on the situation you're given. So always make sure that you label your triangle before you get started with your question. So I know it might seem like a bit of work, but a bit of work will save you a lot of mistakes. Label your triangle perfectly, double check it, and then figure out which trig ratio you need to use. If you're asked to solve a triangle, that means find all angles and side lengths. Find all of the angles and find all of the side lengths. That's what solve means. Calculate inverse ratios. Inverse ratios are if you need to find the angle. So we know that sine A equals some ratio. If we need to find that angle, we can take sine inverse, we call it sine inverse, of both sides. So I'm going to do some examples with some of those soon, but the basic premise right now is on your calculator. Most calculators will have scientific calculators have your sine, cos, and tan buttons here, and then directly above it you'll see this sine inverse. So if we need to rearrange an equation to remove the sign, to get rid of the sign, this one will cancel out this one, and what you're left with is A. And that is, on my calculator, that's right above it here. So if I wanted to use that, I would hit, instead of hitting sine, I would have to hit, I want that, so I would have to hit second sine, that button. So take a look at your calculator and see if you can find it. Make sure you can find it before you get started with the examples. A couple other things to note before we get started with any examples. Angle of elevation and angle of depression. These are some terms that are used a lot in some common word problems. Whenever we refer to an angle of elevation, hopefully you can read that, that's what that says right there. Angle of elevation is always the angle that goes from the horizontal, from this line, up. So this is an angle of elevation. Angle of elevation never means this. It does not start here and go this way. It always starts from the horizontal and elevates. It always goes from this side up, basically. And similarly, angle of depression always starts from the horizontal and goes down. Starts at the horizontal and goes down. Doesn't matter where it is. It could be, if the example is something on land, in water, in the sky. Angle of depression means start horizontal, and it's the angle created from this line down. So this would be an angle of depression. Just to double check again that we know how to use our calculator. There's, like I showed you, those certain buttons that you're going to need to know. Locate the sine, cos, and tan buttons on your calculator. You're going to need them. Make sure that your calculator is on the degree setting. So if your calculator is not on degrees and it's on grad or rad, gradients or radians, it won't be able to calculate your angles in degrees. We're going to work in degrees in this course. So usually it will say in small print on the display. If it is not in degrees, you need to get it into degrees. So for my calculator, see if I can show you, that is a little DEG right there. Not sure. So mine is currently in degrees. If I need to get it in or out of degrees, I can go to mode, hit mode, normal, and I think that would put it back in degrees for me. Yeah, Okay. So you kind of have to play around with your calculator and see how to, oh, mine's actually really weird. Mine has a second, if I hit second, and then this drag button, the DRG. Mine's in gradients right now, DRAD. So I need to slide that over, and now it's in degrees. And now it's in radians. Degrees, that's what I want. That's what I want. Okay. So you just kind of have to play around with your specific calculator and find out. Oftentimes you can look it up or there's a manual. And worst case scenario, if you can't figure it out and your calculator is not in degrees, get a hold of me and I can hopefully explain it to you. Determine your order of entry. Once you know how your calculator works for trig, you will use the same method every time. Sometimes with certain calculators, you're going to put in sine of an angle equals, so that's how mine works. So sine of 52 would be 0.788. Some calculators have you put in the number first and then hit sine. That doesn't work for mine. This is 52 multiplied by, so it doesn't work for my calculator. So figure out which order you need to put it into your own calculator. So here are some examples. Calculate tan of 45 degrees. Sometimes you press 45 then the tan button. Sometimes you press tan then 45. Either way, whichever way your calculator works, you should get 1. If you're not getting the answer 1, then double check that your calculator is in degrees. Similarly, sine of 60 degrees should end up being 0.866. Use your method. If you do not get that answer, once again, chances are your calculator is not in degrees. So if you've got those, then your calculator is probably good to go, and you're ready to do some examples.